Now, just to be clear, this is not Mythbusters, this is debunking myths. Similar, but different. What's up, Rebels? My name is Leo, and I am one half of Leo and Willy. We are engaged, we are queer.
Oh my god, what is that?
And today I'm going to be talking about and debunking 5 different myths that are very commonly heard about, for some reason, about trans people. Now, there are definitely many more than just 5 common misconceptions about trans people. Unfortunately, lack of education and knowledge and understanding about trans people, trans identities, and the trans community at large is really common amongst a lot of people. So there are going to be many things that people might come to believe or be misinformed on and think that they might be a certain way when that could be so far from the truth of what actual trans people experience. Misconceptions can come in many different forms and many different degrees of misinformation, right? Some things are ignorant, some things are bigoted, and a lot of things fall in between those 2 points. But today, I'm just going to be approaching each of these myths just on the baseline of trying to spread education and information from myself, a trans person who wants to just help people understand a bit more. So without further ado, let's get into it. Gay agenda, gay agenda, gay agenda, gay agenda. I can't beatbox, so that's what I got. The first trans myth that we are going to be talking about is the very overarching myth that the trans experience is somehow a monolith. Now, what does that mean? It means that there simply is not just one way to be trans. There are multiple gender identities that fall under the trans umbrella. Human experience is unique in that every single individual's experience of life is going to be different. We all have our own ways of experiencing the world, experiencing ourselves, viewing ourselves, and all of those things go into how you identify. Just in the way that every cis man and every cis woman are not all completely the same, that is also true for trans people. So by understanding that, we can understand that there's no way that it can always be the same experience for every trans person. And there's also not even just one way to be trans. So you can't even say that there's only one type of trans person out there. I think that's the neighborhood kids running around. Fuck off. Myth number 2, being trans or being non-binary or gender non-conforming is new or a trend. Y'all, really? All right, let's talk about it. Listen, trans people, non-binary people, gender non-conforming people have existed for literally as long as humans have existed. There is evidence of this. Go read your history books, read up on trans history, read up on gender history, and also look into things outside of your own culture, because there are things across the globe that show evidence of gender diverse people throughout different cultures, different languages, different walks of life that are so far removed yet so connected. I think the reason why a lot of people think that being trans is a trend and, a lot of people are becoming trans or turning trans right now, and it's all like a young people thing. I think that a lot of the root of the reason for that is because we haven't had information, education about transness, about trans identities, about trans people, trans history, trans experiences. Those things haven't really been talked about up until relatively very recently, at least when it comes to the public at large. I mean, these things have always been being talked about within communities, but these things have become way more mainstream. And with the spread of information comes more people being educated on something and potentially learning that they identify with something that they had never heard of before. Or maybe they had heard about it, but they just didn't understand it. Yes, the trans community is growing and becoming very much more visible and open, and that is an amazing thing. But we need to remember that trans people have always been here. There are trans elders. There are histories that are so enriched by trans experiences and trans people. And I think it's really important for trans people and allies alike to recognize this history and recognize that we've been here, y'all. Myth number 3, trans people are just confused. Come on, of course this one is going to be on the list. I feel like it is the most common misconception about a lot of LGBTQ plus identities. The whole concept of someone being confused about who they are, confused about their identity, or just not knowing themselves properly and basing their movements in the world on something that they don't understand themselves. I think there's a lot of questions around this topic that come up from people who, whether they mean harm or not, can say things that are really ignorant and can cause harm. Comments or questions that suggest that a trans person is confused about their identity, insinuating that they need to explain their reasoning for being who they are. These things shouldn't happen. First of all, you shouldn't be doing that, because if you see someone who identifies the same way as you don't go up to that person and ask, why do you feel this way? How did you come to understand that you are also straight and cis? Just curious. You know, one of you guys, actually, one of the rebels, Jabari, made a video talking about some stuff related to this, and he said something, and I just need to, let me go reference it, because I loved what he said. One sec. Okay, yeah, he was talking about this question of sort of why are you trans? Why are you queer? Why do you like this? Why do you feel this way? Why? When someone asks a person why they are who they are, it's a very difficult thing, and it's a very personal thing that I think gets very, very often overlooked. And Jabari was saying that his response to that is just because I am, period. I'm gonna link his video in the description because it's really good to watch, and I think I just don't want to butcher his words because I think he said things really well. But the basic concept of what I got from what he was saying was that, you are allowed to just simply be who you are because you are being you. You can just be. You can just exist and be yourself and know yourself, and you don't have to have X, Y, and Z reasons as to why you equal this. I think that that's so important, and I think it's also something that is good for queer people, for trans people, to remind ourselves of as well. Unfortunately, there is a lot of hate out there. There is a lot of ignorance and a lot of things that can be really harmful to us and be really triggering to us and can leave us with feelings of isolation or self-doubt or just a lack of confidence in being ourselves and being authentic. But I think it's important to remember that you are you because you are yourself, and you know yourself better than any other human being on this planet. So no, we're not confused. We know exactly who we are, and if you're confused, that can be okay if you come to the table willingly and open to learning. All right, moving on to myth number 4, and this is a big one. Being trans is a mental health issue. Oh boy. I'm not even going to pretty this one up. This is extremely harmful language. It's a rhetoric that is fueled with hate and full of a rich history of bigotry. Weaponizing mental health to invalidate trans people or queer people is something that unfortunately has been happening throughout history. And even more unfortunately, it's still happening to this day, and at very alarming rates, I might add. Being trans is in no way a mental illness. There is nothing wrong with someone who is trans, and there's nothing to cure about being trans. There is, however, things such as gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria is something that can have a lot of impact on a person's mental health, and things that we can do to treat gender dysphoria are things like HRT. And gender dysphoria is something that we can treat with gender-affirming care. Any person who says that being trans is in any way a mental illness is being extremely harmful to the trans community. If you hear someone say that, please call it out for what it is. Please don't stay silent, especially if you are an ally. Trans identity is very, very topical right now, to say the least. Unfortunately, our safeties and our protections and our rights are very much in danger in a lot of political sense. And I'm not going to get into all of that in this video because that's not what we're doing here. But I will quickly say that being trans is something that I don't think everyone is going to understand. And the thing is that not understanding something is okay. You don't need to fully understand something in order to be accepting. But a great way to be an ally to the trans people in your life and the trans community at large is to fight back against this kind of rhetoric when you hear it or see it online. It's always a great day to call out bigotry. All right, you guys, we have come to the final myth. This calls for a drum roll. Myth number 5, all trans people are straight. And you know what, guys? This one isn't even a myth. It's true. Sorry. All right, bye. Wait, I was joking. Please stay. Of course, not every trans person is straight. Not every cis person is straight. I don't really know where this concept came from that if you can identify someone as trans, you can automatically also identify their sexuality. I think that there's a lot of compulsory heterosexuality that people, particularly cis people, will project onto a trans person based on their assigned gender at birth, which not only is really invalidating to trans people, but also just really annoying. Trans people can be gay, straight, bi, pan, aro, ace, everything. They can literally be any part of the LGBTQ plus spectrum and be trans. And the same goes for non-binary people and gender non-conforming people. Don't worry, besties, I haven't forgotten you. So no, you're not going to be able to tell how someone identifies with their sexuality just based on how they identify with their gender. Unless they let you know how they identify, you just gotta find out by asking them. In the same way that, like I said in the beginning, there's no one way to be trans, there's no one way to be trans and queer. It's all a big rainbow melting pot and we all just swim around and mingle and have a great time. I don't even know. All right, you guys, that was 5 trans myths that we've covered today. Interesting. There's definitely more out there. If you guys want to see a part 2 to this, let me know. There are so many more that I could talk about that I didn't talk about in this video because it was just gonna be way too long for either of us to tolerate. But if you did like this video, please do leave a comment down below, like and subscribe to our channel for more from me and my partner Willy. We've got a lot of fun things cooking up for you guys, so make sure you click on that bell so you don't miss any of the action. All right, you guys, drink water, eat carrots, and Willy will see you in the next one. Mwah. Goodbye.